Hey everyone, and welcome to Ginger Prime. My name's Brian, and if you're a returning subscriber, what's up, Soul Nation? Today we're doing a deep dive into the Stasis Spotlight for the Titan Behemoth. Now, this is honestly incredibly exciting. Personally, the fact that we're getting a new subclass added to Destiny after all this time has me really thrilled and hyped. So, if you'll permit me, this is going to be my live reaction and recording to this, so I'm sure it's going to be filled with wonderful flubs. Maybe a child or two is going to burst in the door. We don't know what's going to happen here in this unedited approach, but hopefully you guys enjoy this video, and if you do, let me know in the comments below. Now, just as an aside, if you're new, if you haven't seen my Destiny content before, I'm a Warlock main. We previously just talked about that, the Shadebinder. You could check that link in the description if you want to see that video. It's a little bit different from this one. Honestly, we're just trying things out and seeing what you guys like the most. But let's go ahead and talk about this card that's on screen right now. Personally, yeah, the Titan Behemoth. Titans are my second main. I apologize to hunters out there. Honestly, I love Warlock and I love Titan, and I just cannot get into the Hunter. But rather than insulting you, let's go ahead and cover what Crash Like an Avalanche Behemoth means in this case. So Behemoths are high offensive and high defensive, creating a solid stasis crystal that provides cover for platforms which to leap. During their super, Behemoths can also jump higher, faster, and farther, and apparently they have unlimited melee energy with high damage mitigation on their super. This honestly feels like you're just going to be punching things to death while in super mode, and that freaking sounds amazing. So anyway, you have the Glacial Strike. This is where Behemoths compel stasis energy to attach to their body, covering themselves in frozen darkness, forming a stasis gauntlet in one hand, increasing their damage resistance in the process. Then you have Shiver Strike. The Behemoth summons a stasis gauntlet and lunges forward with an explosive speed, smashing through anything in their way. Upon reaching their target, they unleash a devastating jab that sends their foe careening backwards while slowing nearby enemies. Ground control, Behemoths slam their gauntlet into the ground, sending out tremors of powerful stasis energy that leave crystals in their wake and freeze all enemies in the vicinity. Honestly, it's going to be really great playing with Warlock and Titan again. Cannot wait to see if for some reason this shifts my main. Alright, so let's dive into the article itself. It says, welcome to this edition of the series of Spotlight articles in which we're examining stasis via the 3 Guardian classes in Destiny 2. And like I said, we just covered Shadebinder, but again, links are all be in the description below if you just want to jump in, read them for yourself. So you have Titan, Smash, makes me think Hulk, but okay. Anyway, two things that simply go hand to hand. There are a few combat situations in Destiny 2 that can't be solved, or at least made better by a quick Titan punch to the face. When Beyond Light is released in November, Guardians who prefer the Titan class will discover a new subset of stasis powers that allow them to harness the power of darkness. And yes, fisticuffs will be a part of it, but that's not the entire story. As we've discussed in our previous edition of the series, each stasis subclass will embody a facet of stasis. Warlock Shadebinders emphasize freezing enemies, and as you'll learn more about the next week, the Reverend is also going to be specialized at slowing the action down. The Titan Behemoth uses stasis as a means for both creation and destruction. Yeah, that looks... I almost cussed. That looks freaking bleeping amazing. Anyway, with the Behemoth, we wanted to put an emphasis on the ability to use stasis to create crystals that can alter the battle by changing the very ground beneath your feet. Control the ground, control the fight, and as a result, Behemoth can use their stasis abilities defensively, such as creating crystalline walls to block enemies and gunfire, or offensively by using crystals to freeze enemies. The Titan Behemoth can unleash a powerful melee attack that is known as the Shiver Strike. Here, the Titan lunges forward by launching the stasis explosion at their feet and propel them forward by the enemy. Now, while in midair, they'll summon stasis gauntlets that cover their fist and then slam it into their foe, sending them careening backwards and slowing nearby enemies. That crowd control piece of it sounds fundamentally interesting. I love that aspect. I don't think we get enough crowd control in modern games, but that's just me. We'll keep moving on. The Behemoth Super, the Glacial Strike. Quake, this begins with the time of forming his mighty gauntlet of the fist, and then it can slam that gauntlet into the ground, sending out shockwaves that form stasis crystals which freeze nearby enemies, covering them in an armor of stasis crystals. Now, when the Titan temporarily becomes an unstoppable wrecking machine, making it able to jump higher, faster, and farther. That in and of itself seems very game-breaking. Obviously, I think we're going to see lots of balancing changes overall, but personally, I love that fact. And that's actually the thing that is the most tempting to come back and just experience faster, higher, and farther, and just punch, 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 punch. all while blasting enemies with greatly increased melee attacks. That sounds exciting. Now, if frozen enemies are at the if they are the bowling pins, think of the Titan Behemoth during the Glacial Quake super as the bowling ball. Being able to instantly shatter enemies as they sprint or slide through them, running amok in a crowd of bad guys and shattering them all in like a perfect 10-pin strike is a fine strategy, but there's a degree of subtlety to it there too. If you want, for example, you can cancel out of a slide into a massive stasis power leap, only to cancel that just at the right moment and direct the behemoth downward to a devastating slam. This, I think, like ultimately right here, could be just a powerful skill gap that you can find those Titans to really kind of master that ability to, do those cancel outs and being able to kind of switch up and rechange their direction. Rechange. That's a great word. Let's just put that on a shirt. Anyway, so punch if you must, but know that Stasis has plenty more to offer you. Now, we talked about this last time. If you didn't see the Shadebinder, this is how, and this is what they're talking about with the aspects and the fragments. Stasis is going to be something completely different rather than top tier, bottom tier, mid tier that we've seen already with Arc, Solar, and Void. So that's personally very exciting. And my hope is that if this gets worked right, if this has that right balance, it'd be awesome to see those classes, those subclasses kind of get a rework to add to the system. But overall, they're kind of showing you what it looks like. You have your abilities that you select, you have your aspects, and you have your fragments. These are going to have positive and negatives attached to them. So again, you can see like, hey, you can have this aspect that they have a tectonic harvest here, a petrified grasping for something once held but now lost. Your hands create power from nothing, and this is shattering a stasis crystal creates a stasis shard, and this shard grants melee energy when picked up by you or your allies. So that's how you can sit here and even become a support class as a behemoth in this case. And you can see here multiple fragments playing out. Now, I think we're going to have to go jump into the Shadebinder so I can cover the nitty gritty. Here you can see that it's got plus strength for Whisper of Endurance, but there's a couple things that we need to talk about. So next week, they're going to do a deeper dive into the third final subclass, the Hunter Reverent, and how you make the quickest class even more deadly by slowing down everything around them. That's how. So we got more to cover on that, but let's jump back really briefly into the Warlock Shadebinder, because I think this is just as important. Because it doesn't, this one assumes you read that one. This one assumes you either watched that video. So in this, it's that, let's talk about, for example, the Warlock finds a Frostbite Pulse in the world and equips it. That aspect will augment the Rift ability, which now freezes an enemy caught in the field. So you can see here, this is a good example of, you get this defeated frozen targets with weapons grants you super energy, but you're going to have a negative impact and a negative discipline. I think this is where it talks about, so each Stasis subclass in Beyond Light will give players the ability to customize their abilities like grenades, movements, modes, class abilities, and so forth and so on. In addition, they've actually added new layers of customizations in the form of aspects and fragments. Aspects manifest as physical items in the world, such as crystallized Vex, Conflux, or a robotic fallen arm, for example. Now, when slotted in, aspects will offer players new abilities, among other effects. These abilities can be mixed and matched freely by the player. Many aspects will have space for fragments to be slotted in. Fragments are also physical items that you can discover in the world that, when applied to aspects, offer additional passive perks such as stat bonuses that may come with penalties. Aspect upgrades are unique to each Stasis subclass, while fragment slots are class agnostic. Now players can combine these two types and upgrades and will lead to a range of customization options. That's what I want to make sure I covered in this video, because there's a lot of information in that aspect and fragment. Anyway, guys, November, big time, like in Destiny history. If for some reason you're watching this video and you're not currently playing, I'd highly recommend taking a look at the ultimate list, the what's going away, to be able to kind of decide for yourself if you want to jump back and start farming some of these things. Personally, right now, I'm working on a couple of other videos for a couple other games, but then my whole focus is going to be working on a couple of these exotic catalyst quests and more within the world of Destiny. So thankfully I've got enough room. If you guys haven't seen it, I just also posted kind of a leveling guide, especially if you're busy like me, if you got a family, if you got a job, you're not a full-time streamer, great, like we're on the same page. A way to kind of make sure that you can kind of get caught up and get ready for Beyond Light, and also can knock out Season of the Rival stuff. anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video, guys. Hopefully you found it interesting. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought of the format. If you like the fact that I'm talking to you directly like this way, it's rather than 100% voiceover. Honestly, any feedback, all feedback, I'd love to hear it in the comments below. And that's going to wrap it up. I have no real way to sign off. I'm actually really thrilled that no kids bursted in while recording this. It's been a rare today. Today has been a real interesting and difficult recording day. So anyway, I'll wrap it up. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you in my next video. But until then, take care. This video is sponsored by me, Ginger Prime. Hopefully you'll check out my podcast channel, Ginger Gaming Radio, which we have lots of guests, lots of great conversations, and even more highlights. Links are in the description below. Let me know what you think. Thanks.